Hello guys, I look so pretty today. wait.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Khadija Mo here. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how we achieved this beautiful look for Crystal. And if you'd like to see how we achieved it, please keep on watching. So right away, we're getting started with a toner just to clean up her skin. And as usual, I'm using the one from Clinique that I always use on myself. I'm going to fan her skin just to make sure that it's nice and dry before we moisturize. For moisturizer, we're using the Bobbi Brown moisturizer. We're going to use that all over her face. And then to moisturize underneath her eyes, we're going to use the eye cream from the same collection. And we're going to just massage that into her skin. And then we're going to use a fan to make sure that it's all absorbed into her skin before we go in with our primers. Now for primers, we're using these three primers. One from Becca, which is a mattifying primer. We're going to use that in her T-zone. And then the other two primers are from Danessa Myricks. The first one is the water powder primer, which we're going to use all over her face just to help control shine throughout the day. I'm going to blend it out with my hands, and then I'm going to use the blurring balm just to get some blur on her skin before we go in with foundation. I'm going to leave all the products in the description box for anybody who was interested in finding out what exactly we were using. So for foundation, I started out with this foundation from Urban Decay. I blended it out, and then I didn't like the undertone, so I ended up going over it with the NARS Radiant foundation in the shade Caracas. Unfortunately, I didn't record the first part where I switched the foundation, so you're only seeing me applying it now to the forehead. But this is what the foundation is looking like after application. For contour, I'm going in with my Black Opal Stick Foundation in the shade Carob. I'm applying that to her cheekbones and her jawline, as well as the side of her nose and her forehead. And then I'm going to go in with my concealer after this. And for concealers, I decided to use the Tarte Shape Tape. I'm using two shades, 42S and 36S. I would put the 42S first and then apply the 32S closer to her eye, since it's the 36S, I'm sorry, closer to her eye since it's the lighter shade. And I like to let my concealer sit for a while. So it's going to be a while before we blend that out, just so that the skin can absorb it and we can get a better coverage. Then I'll apply a mix of both concealers as well to the bridge of her nose, Cupid's bow, her chin, and her forehead. So while we're waiting for the concealer to dry down and absorb into her skin, we're going to go ahead and blend out the contour. And when you're blending the contour on the cheekbone, you want to blend it downwards. And when you're blending out the contour on the jawline, you want to blend downwards. And when you're blending out on the cheekbone, then you want to blend it upwards to give that lifted face look. So we're just blending it out, blending. And then I decided to go in with a deeper shade for the contour just to get a bit more depth in those areas. And what I'm using here is the Maybelline Superstay Stick Foundation in the shade 370. And I'm just blending it out with the same technique that I used to blend out the original product that we applied. To blend out the nose contour, I'm using a smaller eyeshadow brush just so that I can get in there without moving around the concealer. And I'm just blending it on down the sides of her nose and up into her eyebrow to get a nice flow and a nice snatched nose. For blending out the under eye, you want to start away from the eyes and then move up closer towards the eyes. This is just to help the product to stay in place and not to spread it out too far down. So I am just blending it out with this setting brush from Real Techniques. I did apply a little bit too much concealer to this eye. So what I did was, as I was blending, I would wipe off my brush on a paper towel just to get off some of the excess product. And this is how we're looking so far. Don't be afraid to take your time and blend until you feel like everything is sitting right on the skin. So now that that's done, I'm just going back in with the brush that I used to contour with no additional product. And I'm just trying to get a nice transition between the concealer and the contour. So I'm just going over the areas where I contoured. And then I would go in with my foundation brush as well, still with no additional product, and just go over everything still in the same areas to make sure that we're getting a good blend. We don't want any harsh lines from concealer to contour or concealer to foundation or whatever. So just taking that and blending. Now I'm applying my liquid blush, and this one is from Rare Beauty. I think it's in the shade Love, I'm not sure, but it'll be in the description box. I'm going to blend that out as well, and I'm using the same brush that I used to blend out my contour. Now to set under the eyes, I'm using the Charlotte Tilbury powder in the shade number 3. It's a pressed powder. And then I'm going to go over that with my loose setting powder, which is from Dermablend in the shade Banana. This is not usually how I would set my under eyes, but a friend of mine told me about this technique and I decided to try it out. This was my second or third time trying it out, and I'm not crazy about it, so I'll probably just stick with what I know, which is using the loose setting powder first and then going over it with a pressed powder if I choose to. I did also use the loose setting powder on all the other places that I highlighted, so the nose, chin, forehead, bridge of the nose, Cupid's bow. And now I'm using the Sephora setting powder, and this one is in the shade Almond, I believe. And I'm just setting everywhere, all over the face, the entire face, to bring everything together. And then I'm going over my contour. I'm going in with the bronzer from Fenty, and this is in the shade Coco Naughty. And I'm just going over the places that I contoured just to add some warmth. And for the sides of the nose, I don't use any additional product, so I just use whatever's left on the brush so as not to get harsh lines on the nose. For a blush, this is a Sephora collection blush. However, I think it's been discontinued, but it's a dupe for the Dior Backstage blush. And I'm just going over the areas that I blushed with that. Then I'm going in with my Morphe setting spray. I love to use this setting spray at this stage just to get all that powder to kind of melt into the skin. And then I'm going in with the fan to make sure that everything is dry before I proceed onto eyebrows. So I'm just brushing the eyebrows upwards, and then I'm using my Anastasia Beverly Hills Dip Brow in the shade Chocolate. I'm using that to line the eyebrows, and then I'll use it to fill them in as well. I'll fill it in towards the tail end a little bit heavy-handedly, but then going towards the front, I'm really doing light strokes, as light as possible, just to get like a little shadow, and I don't want the eyebrows to look boxy in the front. And when that is done, I would take my eyebrow pencil. It's from Absolute New York, and I'm going to fill in just the tail end, as you can see here, to get it nice and more crisp and a little bit darker towards the end there. Now that I like how that is looking, I'm going to go in and clean up the eyebrow with concealer. For concealer, I'm using something that's really close to her foundation shade, and I think this one is a Stay Naked line from Urban Decay. I'm just using a flat definer brush to clean that up, and then I'm going to go in with a blending brush to blend out that concealer. And at this stage, you want to be very careful because we already did foundation and all that stuff, and you don't want to mess that up with concealer or eyebrow pencil or any such thing. So you want to really take your time and just do a little bit at a time so as not to mess up all the work that we've done. So for the eyeshadow, my camera was overheating, so we ended up just doing it off camera, and then we went and had something to eat because we were hungry. So I just decided to go back in with some powder. So here I'm using the Fenty powder foundation in the shade 390, just going over everything to bring it back together. So going over the under eyes, the contour, everything, just to bring it together. Then for her lips, I'm using the ColourPop lip liner in the shade Nude 3, using that to line her lips. And then I'm going to go over that with this brown liquid lipstick from the Sephora collection, just to make the overlining a little bit more prominent. And then the lipstick that I'm using for the lips is number 69, still from the Sephora collection. And I'm just blending that out. I'll have her smack and then we'll do some back and forth, and this is what we have. And then to gloss up the lips, I'm using a lip gloss from Lancome. And then I'm going to go over the lined areas with Hot Chocolate from Fenty, just to kind of make that the perimeter stand out a bit more. Now over to the eyes, I'm just putting some eyeliner pencil in her waterline. I'm going to highlight her inner corner, and I'm going to apply some mascara to her lower lashes as well. I did also smoke out the lower lash line with some brown eyeshadow, but I don't think I recorded that part. And then I went in and set her face with the L'Oreal setting spray, the red one, the mattifying one, but somehow I think I lost the footage of that as well. So after that, I'm going to set her under eye with the MAC foundation powder in the shade NC43, just to give that kind of blurred look. And look at that, look at the difference. Yeah, so I would put that underneath her eyes just to give it a nice blurred look throughout the day. And we're going to highlight her nose, just the tip of her nose and the bridge of her nose a little bit. And that's it for this look, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave any comments in the comment section and tell me what you think about the look. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.